Hello and welcome back to another video. Today, we're not covering current weather topics, but we're reviewing last year because NOAA just came out with their overview of last year and how many billion-dollar weather disasters that happened. So, let's get right into it. So, we had $20 billion weather events last year that cost a total, out of all of them, $145 billion and killed 688 people. So, in context, there were 20 weather/climate disaster events with losses exceeding $1 billion each to affect the United States. These events included 1 drought, 2 floods, 11 severe storm events, 4 tropical cyclones, 1 wildfire, and 1 winter storm. Overall, these events resulted in the deaths of 688 people and had significant economic impacts to the areas that were affected. The 1980 to 2021 annual average is 7.4 events. So, 2021 is much higher than that, but the 2017 to 2021 average is 17.2 events. So, that kind of leads into the climate change discussion that we have very often, but that is changing. So, here is the graphic that NOAA has here. So, we're going to go through the top 5. Starting off with let's actually start off with number 1, Hurricane Ida. I think this is the most weirdly specific one. So, because it impacted 2 areas from August 29th to September 1st, we kind of have 2 descriptions here. Not only is this a hurricane, it's also a flood. So, Category 4 Hurricane Ida made landfall near Port Fortune, Louisiana, with a maximum sustained winds of 150 miles an hour and a minimum central pressure of 930 millibars. Ida was one of 3 hurricanes in recorded history to make landfall in Louisiana with 150 mile an hour winds, along with Hurricane Laura from 2020 and the last island hurricane in 1856. Grand Isle, Louisiana took a direct hit with 100% of its homes damaged and nearly 40% were nearly to completely destroyed. There was heavy damage to the energy infrastructure across southern Louisiana, causing widespread and long-duration power outages to millions of people. Parts of New Orleans were without power for nearly a week due to the widespread damage. As the remnants of Ida moved into the northeast, it merged with the frontal system, creating severe weather and flash flooding across a wide region from eastern Pennsylvania to New York. Flash flood emergencies were declared in New York, New Jersey for the first time, producing damage to homes, businesses, vehicles, and infrastructure, while also causing dozens of fatalities. And that is right here. Hurricane Ida, August 29th to September 1st. So, number 2 on the list is the Northwest Central Eastern Winter Storm and Cold Wave from February 10th of 2021 to February 19th of 2021. So, historic cold wave and winter storm impacts many northwest, central, and eastern states. The temperature departures exceeding 40 degrees below normal occurred from Nebraska southward to Texas. The prolonged Arctic air caused widespread power outages in Texas, as well as other southern states. With multiple days of sustained below freezing temperatures, at the peak of the outage, nearly 10 million people were without power. Additional impacts were frozen water pipes, which burst upon thawing, causing water damage to buildings. These extreme conditions also caused direct and indirect deaths of more than 210 people in Texas alone. This count does not include excess mortality that may be hundreds of additional deaths. There were also snow and ice impacts across numerous states, including Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. This is now the costliest U.S. winter storm event on record, more than doubling the inflation-adjusted cost of the storm of the century that occurred in March of 1993. And that occurred right in here. Number 3, the Western wildfires from June 1st to December 31st, an entire half of the year. Severe drought conditions and periods of extreme heat provided conditions favorable for another damaging western wildfire season focused across California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Arizona. The Dixie Fire consumed over 960,000 acres, making it the second largest wildfire on record in California, while also destroying more than 1,000 structures. California's Caldor Fire grew rapidly during August, threatening South Lake Tahoe communities and burning over 220,000 acres. Other large wildfires included the Corkscrew Fire and the Bootleg Fire, the Boundary Fire, and the Tail Creek Fire, and as well as the Telegraph Fire, among many others. There was also the Marshall Fire in Boulder, Colorado on December 30th that damaged more than 1,000 homes or businesses. This wildfire is the most destructive on record in Colorado. Throughout the wildfire season, air quality was also a concern across numerous states as ash and fire particulates from wildfires obscure the skies and made outdoor activities more hazardous. Over 7.1 million acres burned nationally during the 2021 wildfire season. So, we have wildfires in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Colorado. Number 4, Western drought and heat wave from the entire year. So, Western drought conditions were persistent throughout 2021. As drought expanded and intensified across many western states, a historic heat wave also developed for many days across the Pacific Northwest, shattering numerous all-time high temperature records across the region. This prolonged heat dome was maximized over the states of Oregon and Washington and extended well into Canada. These extreme temperatures impacted several major cities and millions of people. For example, Portland reached a high of 116 degrees Fahrenheit, while Seattle reached 108 degrees Fahrenheit. These extreme temperatures caused hundreds of direct and indirect heat-related fatalities across Oregon and Washington, not including excess mortality that may be hundreds of additional deaths. This combined drought and heat rapidly dried out vegetation across the West, impacting agriculture. Low water levels also forced the hydroelectric power plants at Lake Oroville in California to shut down for the first time since it opened in 1967. And that is the entire West. So, we've been through the first 4, we're on to 5. The Southeast Central Tornado Outbreak from December 10th to December 10th. Historic December tornado outbreak across several southeast and central states caused devastating damage across many towns and cities. This outbreak produced 2 long-tracked EF4 tornadoes across Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. The longest tornado track was nearly 166 miles across Kentucky and small portions of Tennessee. This was the longest track tornado on record in Kentucky and was a U.S. record tornado track length for the month of December. There were over 800 total miles of tornado path length on December 10th. The peak intensity from this outbreak was EF4, rated wind speeds of 190 miles per hour in Mayfield, Kentucky. This day was also the deadliest December tornado outbreak recorded in the United States, surpassing the Vicksburg, Mississippi tornado of December 5th of 1953, which caused 38 fatalities. And that is right in here. So, in terms of cost, so these are all in billions. The Southeast Central tornado outbreak, $3.9 billion. The Western drought and heat wave, $8.9 billion. The Western wildfires, $10.6 billion. Northwest, Central, Eastern, and Winter Storm and Cold Wave, $24 billion. And Hurricane Ida caused $75 billion in damages. So, let's go back and go through deaths. So, the tornado outbreak, 93 deaths. The drought, 229 deaths. The wildfires, 8 deaths. The cold wave, 226 deaths. And Ida, 96 deaths. So, that is the overall billion-dollar disasters in 2021. In review, we keep seeing more and more of these major storms, and even though they do cause a lot of these impacts, there's also some times where they could be helpful in a way. So we have flooding and severe weather threat in California at the beginning of the year, but we also have wildfires. So those kind of contradict each other. We have a bunch of, tornado outbreaks and severe thunderstorms, but we also have winter storms. So everything comes in as balances. The problem is that these balances are so severe that we don't really get much relief. So I'm not saying that climate change isn't real, because it totally is. What I'm saying is, it's not just global warming. It really isn't. We are seeing extremes on both sides. We're seeing extreme winter weather. We're seeing extreme summer weather. We're seeing extreme spring and fall weather. We're seeing extreme hurricanes, winter storms, tornado outbreaks, wildfires, droughts, floods, everything. So this is what climate change really is. And it's not just, hey, the sea levels are rising, even though that is true. It's also, hey, the weather overall is going to be getting more severe because of climate change. Some areas will be getting colder, some areas will be getting warmer, some areas will be getting more precipitation, some areas will be getting less precipitation. It's just a matter of time and space for every single climate in the US and the world to change in some way, either for the better in some spots and for the worst. I mean, we've seen in the West, we've seen these droughts for years upon years. Well, maybe eventually, if we continue to see this trend with climate change, that's going to reverse again. And then we see plenty of tornado outbreaks and floods in the southeast and moving into the northeast. Well, that might flip again, and we see extended droughts in the southeast and the northeast. We see a lot of blizzards in the northern tier. Well, maybe that'll flip and they just see a lot of rain, just like the Pacific Northwest does now. So that's the core part of climate change. And the fact of the matter is that we predict the weather, but predicting the climate's a lot harder. So in the future, I completely plan on doing a full video on climate change, and most likely it will be a very long video, but this is just a little cue into that. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.